can't really seem to define. I can't really seem to figure out how I feel about Oscar Piastri's overtake of Lando Norris in lap 1. And I think that is, it might be a reflection of the lack of leadership from McLaren, because in order to really give a well-rounded perspective on that, you've got to look at Formula One races from the past. You got to look at battles from the past. You got to look at teammate rivalries from the past. And there's the famous Multi-21. If you don't know about that, go ahead and take a look at that. That is Sebastian Vettel versus Mark Webber, Multi-21. They said, Seb, you need to give the place back to Mark Webber. Seb did not. Seb went on to win 4 championships, World Drivers' Championships. That is amazing. And Mark Webber went on to go ahead and quit Formula One after that. If you look at Max Verstappen versus Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen drove so hard that I think it killed Daniel Ricciardo's mojo. Look at Lewis Hamilton versus Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton was an incoming rookie. He was a newbie, and he challenged Fernando Alonso, and Fernando has not won a championship ever since. And of course, you've got the battle of the silver arrows. I'm not going to put any footage of any of these, but I would say please, after you're done watching this video, of course, look those up. That's Formula One racing of old. And, a fun fact, Mark Webber is Oscar Piastri's manager. And, he knows a thing or two about driver politics and all that, and how teams feel about the drivers. And he could have said to Oscar Piastri, hey man, if you ever have any opportunity to pass or any opportunity to gain points, you take it. And you don't feel bad, because you don't know when your next opportunity for a win is going to be. You take each one that you can get. And I think on the flip side, Lando Norris is of the belief that if I do the right thing, then my teammate and my team will do the right thing in return. If the right thing was a thing, after Lando Norris gave up a 6-second lead so that Piastri could have his first race, if we were doing, reciprocal actions to the right thing, then in this Grand Prix, not only would have Oscar Piastri felt obliged to stay back and defend for Lando Norris during lap 1 instead of overtaking him in a very dangerous yet beautiful pass. He would have even swapped positions back by the end of the race. But he didn't do that. And McLaren did not demand that of him. So I found that a little bit strange. And then, there's the rumors that there's a clause in Oscar Piastri's contract that says that, there's no number 1 driver. They're allowed to race every time. I don't know if it's true. I can't verify it anywhere. But what I would say is that if I were Lando Norris, I'd be feeling very slighted. Because on the radio in the Hungarian GP, they were saying to Lando, you might need Oscar Piastri if you want to win a championship. Well, guess what? He needed Oscar Piastri at Monza. He needed Oscar Piastri to stay back and fend off those fast as F Ferraris. He needed Oscar Piastri to not knock him off balance when he had finally got the lap 1, turn 1 start that he has been wanting. And so with much thought, much introspection, and even looking back at old races, I think I have discovered what bothered me so much about McLaren's decision. It's not about racing. You know me. I love racing. The fastest driver should always win, whether that's Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton or Lando Norris or whomever. Whoever's the fastest, man, I have my team. Well, I had my team. I have my favorite drivers. I've got my biases. But the thing that trumps my biases more than anything else is letting the fastest driver freaking win. And I think that's my problem with McLaren right now. Because when it comes to Lando, it's, hey, Lando, let Oscar Piastri by. When it comes to Oscar Piastri, F Lando, do your thing, bruv. Do your thing. And so I can't even fault the drivers. I can't fault Norris. I can't fault Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri is doing what a racing driver does. He's fighting for the win. Now, if Zach Brown or Andrea Stella? If either of them had decided to be the bad guy and be like, hey, we're getting close to the points, man. We're getting close to the World Drivers' Championship points. We need Lando Norris. This is his year. We don't know when this year is going to come back. Mercedes could be amazing next year. Ferrari could be amazing, especially with the 7.5-time world champion at the helm of one of their cars. They could be amazing next year. Red Bull could come back. They could fix their brake gate crap and come back with a really nice car. And Verstappen is a great driver. They could come back next year and fix their crap. So, this might be the only year in the foreseeable future that Lando Norris has the opportunity to win the Drivers' Championship. And for some reason, McLaren has decided that they want to play with points. You never play with points. You never play with points because you don't know when that magical chemistry of perfect car and good enough driver is going to come back. And you don't know what the other teams are going to be into over in the off season. The other cars could be a rocket ship and the McLaren could be a dud. It's happened. And so I think once again, McLaren has snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and I cannot explain it. Either you're letting them race or you're not. If you're letting them race at the Hungarian GP, you're not going to interfere with Lando Norris. You're not going to give him, 20 radio messages saying, hey, we'll talk about this on Monday. You're just going to sit back, kick your feet up on the desk, and say, the boys are racing. They're not touching one another. That's all we asked for. That's papaya frickin' rules. And that's all I can ask for. But the standard just seemed to be different because when it was, possibly Piastri's turn to stay back and help his teammate and McLaren win the championship, nothing. Radio silence. Papaya rules. I think that papaya rules, that is going to be something that comes back to haunt Zach Brown's and Andrea Stella's legacy from here on out. And if there is some kind of contract clause that says that there is no number one driver, I don't know, you're sacrificing your reputations, guys. History is gonna look at you as inept managers, and that's not a good thing. I don't blame Norris. I don't blame Piastri. I think the one thing I would tell Norris if he was watching a Formula One channel with 194, thank you for the two that just joined. If they were watching, if he was watching a 194 subscriber YouTube Formula One channel, I would say, get your points, bro. At all costs, you need to change right now. You need to be that guy that nobody questions. And if they kick you out, they kick you out. Go find another team. Pay the fines. I don't know what's in the contract, but you need to be that guy. Charles Leclerc, he had a really good radio message, in my opinion. He said something like, if I don't do what you ask me to do, don't ask me 10 more times. Max Verstappen, if you get on the radio with him at an inopportune time, it's don't talk to me when I'm braking. Basically, leave me the F alone. Same thing with Lewis Hamilton in his heyday. Sebastian Vettel, multi-21 Seb. Seb pretended that he couldn't understand or pretended that the radio wasn't there. Carlos Sainz, don't ask me these things right now. Lando, learn from these guys. Because at the end of the day, In the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear a lot of, was Oscar Piastri selfish? Should he have passed? You're going to hear that in the next couple of weeks. But 5 years from now, when people play this back, all they're going to see is Oscar Piastri passing you. The nuance is going to go away. The nuance is not going to be there anymore. It's just going to be one car with one driver passing another car, and Lando, you're in that other car. That's what people are going to see. They're not going to see the nuance. They're not going to see what you did for Piastri at the Hungarian GP. They're not going to see that. So you got to take that into account. That was a long rant. I don't even know if I got anywhere on that. I don't know if I solved any questions. Let me see if I can summarize it. If you're going to let the guys race, let them race. And if you're going to do team orders, do team orders. If you're going to let them race, then Hungary GP, Lando Norris would have won, and Piastri won the Monza GP. If you're doing team orders, you know what I mean? That's the difference. We're saying team orders, but we're not playing by team orders. It's only team orders when it's Piastri's best interests that are in question. Okay, I have beat that dead horse. We are like freaking 13 minutes into this. Let's get into the race review. All right, lap 1. Lando Norris finally gets the start he wanted, and Piastri was just behind him, and he even blocked George Russell. And you would think that McLaren has finally developed a strategy to win the World Drivers' Championship. But then, I think it was like turn 3 or turn 4, Piastri pulls up beside Norris and executes an extremely risky inside pass through a narrow chicane, almost taking them both out. But from a pure racing standpoint, that was an amazing pass. Hats off. But it was risky AF. You could have had 0 points there, brethren. You could have 0 points. And with that pass, Lando Norris's World Drivers' Championship hopes got much, much slimmer. That was lap 1. So George Russell takes himself out of the top 5 by going off the track as he was getting ready to enter Parabolica. He has to slalom through the styrofoam cones or, the styrofoam barriers. He either clips his wing there or he clipped it, slightly running into someone, but he really took himself out. In the next pit, he had to, swap out a nose. That takes, anywhere from 4 to 8 seconds, and that just puts you way down the top 10, puts you way down the grid. Norris is clearly thrown off his game. He is clearly thrown off his game because he knows the last thing you want to do is run into your own teammate. But if you look back at the Battle of the Silver Arrows, I will see if I can find a link to put in the comments or in the description, because you guys really need to go back and watch that old footage. Watch everything you can on Multi21. Watch everything you can on Nico Rosenberg versus Lewis Hamilton, and you'll see what I mean by this old school racing. If we're gonna go back to that, then let's go back all the way and just let the boys race it out. Lap 5, Hulkenberg locks up big time. Lap 11, Perez passes a damaged George Russell, and Perez actually drove pretty well this race. I've got no real complaints about him. He only finished a lap slower, 2 places slower than Max Verstappen. So really quickly, this gets into some of the Brakegate scandal. So let me get something. If Max Verstappen turns his car under braking, then that inertia valve kicks in and it helps him corner, right? Perez, on the other hand, tends to brake in a straight line. The inertia valve doesn't kick in, so he's got a regular turning radius, which means he's got to take that turn a little bit wider. Now, if you get rid of that T valve and you don't have that braking assist, that turning assist, then it's going to, in theory, bring Perez and Verstappen much closer together and their end of race results. So that is yet another indicator that the T-valve braking thing was true. Sorry, that was a little bit of a side note, but just more proof that I think that the T-valve actually gave a big advantage. And not to take away from Max Verstappen as a driver, but I do think that that T-valve did help out a lot because Perez and Verstappen are closing a lot more closely to one another these days. All right, lap 15, sloppy strategy by McLaren. Once again, they boxed Norris early in the stint for a medium tire. I think the stint was anywhere from 15 to 22 laps. That's how long they think a medium tire could last. They box him at lap 15. And then they box him after that last turn on Monza. It was last minute box. Lando Norris locks it up. I thought that he was possibly going to get a speeding and the pit lane penalty. Thank goodness he did not. But I think that he should have gone for a couple more laps. Have some fresher tires there toward the end of the race and maybe open yourself up for a one-stopper. But in order for that to have happened, Piastri and Norris should not have been running, back-to-back fastest laps. And you wonder why your left front tire is wearing out. It's because you're pushing the car so fast. You're pushing the car so hard. Everybody else is kind of waiting and seeing what the rest of the race has to offer. And this is where McLaren leadership should have been, guys, slow the F down. We don't know if Ferrari's going to do a one-stopper. You're going to burn out your tires, force a two-stopper in a track that is, capable of one stop. But they didn't do that. All right. Leclerc pits at lap 16. What did I put in my notes? Settling in. Yeah, settling in for a brilliant long stint on hard tires. Lap 18, K-Mag uses Gasly's car as a brake. I mean, we've all done that in sim racing. You see the car ahead of you. You're not going to make the turn, so you kind of like bounce off that car so that you don't go off the track. I've never seen that in a real Formula One race, but K-Mag did exactly that. And let me tell you, he did actually earn his one race ban. My guy, you're at 10 points. You only got 12 before you get a race ban. You can't be bouncing off of cars. As much as I feel bad for the guy, you earned your race ban. Take it, understand it, improve, and hope that you're in the sport for a couple of years from now. Lap 31, George Russell keeps trying to make it work. Wears out his tires on a pass attempt that he knows is not going to stick. And this is why Mercedes just isn't that into you, because you're very fast. George Russell is a very fast driver, but he makes a lot of emotional mistakes. And in this business, you can't be making emotional mistakes, because you're going to wear out your tires. You're going to crash a multi-million-dollar car. And both of those things have happened on his watch multiple times. Also, lap 31, Norris and Piastri keep trading fastest laps, wearing out their tires. Left front tire keeps getting cooked, and that does actually come back to haunt them. Norris goes off track, and he loses about 2 seconds, and he is clearly rattled by what's been going on. I think at this point, Norris, you got to accept that Zach isn't your friend. Piastri isn't your friend. Andrea Stella isn't your friend, and you just got to race your race, dude. You just got to race your race. All right, lap 38. George Russell, another semi-reckless pass against Perez, wearing out the tires. He made this one stick, but only just. Lap 39, both McLarens pit after back-to-back fastest laps. McLaren should have let Norris go P1 at the end of that. Gotten the points. Can you imagine if they let Lando Norris win the Hungary GP and then let him win this GP? He would have been, I think, like 50 points away from Verstappen at that point. Verstappen keeps getting 6th and 7th place finishes, And then imagine also if Toto Wolff had treated Lewis Hamilton like the number one driver and not been, kind of screwing him over. You would have a McLaren team and a Mercedes team that were basically neck and neck for the World Drivers' Championship title, and of course, inherently, the World Constructors' Championship. But they both took their hands off the wheel, kicked their feet up on the desk, and said, "I don't care. We're not trying to win." It is the weirdest season in that regard. I'm glad that the drivers are stepping up because if I'm honest, the leadership isn't. I was a Marine a long time ago. Shout out to my Marine in the comments. Ura semper yut. And, as a leader of Marines, it's better for your Marines to gripe about you than it is for them to gripe about one another. You're not there to be liked. You're there to be effective. And the only thing that I can think of is that maybe Zach Brown and Andre Stella want to be liked, and they're trying to thread that needle. Maybe it's a contract thing, but they're clearly not trying to win. Anyway, that was my rant for that. Lap 39, like I said, both McLarens pit after going fastest lap back-to-back. Ferrari stays out, and they ultimately win the race. Lap 41, Sainz defends against Piastri for as long as he bloody well can. Hats off. Happy birthday to Sainz on that one. You drove like a freaking lion, dude. And then from there, it's up to Leclerc to conserve those tires and for Piastri to maintain the attack. Ultimately, the one-stop strategy in this sweltering heat proved to be the correct one. And McLaren didn't even try. They didn't even try. Swapping positions or not, even if you weren't going to swap positions, you should have come over the radio and said, "Guys, slow it the F down because we're trying to win this race. I don't care if it's Piastri who wins or Norris who wins. Both of you guys have to settle into a comfortable lead so that we don't have to pit. At the very least, do that. But the leadership was lacking. So in the end, Ferrari wins. Calmer heads prevail, as they say. And McLaren was left licking their wounds. I gotta say, shout out to Franco Colapinto for an amazing F1 debut race. He gained 6 places. That's pretty amazing. He went from 16th or 18th to 12th in a Williams, bro. Amazing. I feel bad for how they treated Logan Sargent over there at Williams. But, if Franco is going to come in and drive like this, I think Franco is kind of the one to watch. And then the one last thing that I want to talk about is Red Bull and Ferrari are joining forces to complain to the FIA about McLaren's and Mercedes flexible front wings. Hey, all is fair in love and war, and Formula One is definitely a form of war, right? Sports war. And so if they get that and they make it so that McLaren and Mercedes can't use that flexible wing anymore, and Ferrari's already fast without it, and if Red Bull gets their stuff together, it could be a Ferrari versus Red Bull vendetta match in 2025. I, for one, am here for it, and I'll be filming these these videos as we watch along. This is a long video. The Formula One races and the sagas, they just keep going. It keeps getting more and more interesting. And I think 2025, 2026 are going to be amazing seasons. And this second half of 2024, who knows? Who knows? If Lando Norris hardens up and is just like, you know what, I'm going for every single freaking point for the rest of the season, and say Max Verstappen gets frustrated and crashes, I think he's too smart for that. I think he realizes that he can get a 4th drivers championship if he just pulls that car into the finish line in the points every time. I don't think that he's going to do that thing where he gets, super frustrated and bounces off somebody's car and DNFs. He knows he can't afford to DNF. But if he does, McLaren might just be there to sweep up the World Drivers' Championship. And let me tell you, if they get the WDC, it's going to be on accident. It's going to be despite the leadership, not because of it. All right, well, that's it. This is maybe my longest Formula One race review, but there was a lot to cover here. I've been Dalton. This has been the Petrol List, and you have been great. I'm out, and I'll see you next week.